President Bola Tinubu Tuesday hosted presidents of three West African countries at the presidential Villa Abuja. The president welcomed President Patrice Talon of Benin Republic, President Mohamed Bazoum of Niger Republic, and President Umaro Sissoco Embaló of Guinea Bissau at the forecourt of the presidential villa. The visit comes after President Tinubu's election as chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government at the last summit in Guinea Bissau. Issues relating to security and the economy were discussed, as well as ways to strengthen the region's democracy. Now, for a broad look at ECOWAS and wider potentials for development within the continent, now first ECOWAS under the chairmanship of Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu. A professor of international relations and strategic studies, David Awarawa, joins me via Zoom here in Lagos. Good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to focus on the ECOWAS and AU in this conversation because we've seen the president play a role since he took office just about more than 50 days ago. The president, first of all, was made the chairman of the ECOWAS Heads of States and Government. He went to AU to represent that particular sub-regional bloc. And then he has also received 3 presidents from the ECOWAS bloc. How significant is the role that the president has played on the African continent in his few weeks in office?
Yeah, the role of President Tinubu in global diplomacy, especially relations among African states, has been significant. I mean, just a few weeks in the saddle, a whole lot has happened. He's now ECOWAS chairman, and he has used that position just a few days. He has been there now to, examine the problems of West Africa and present a very clear framework that, if followed, will help West Africa to achieve the objectives for which ECOWAS was established. And the broader African Union, yes, the meeting that I held in Nairobi, Kenya, just a few days ago, gave an opportunity for President Tinubu to project beyond West Africa, to join others to lay out the problems confronting Africa and the ways and means of solving them. When one places that side by side, the seeming quiet diplomacy that has gone on in the past 8-10 years, this vibrancy is intriguing.
And I will get to that quiet, if it is quiet diplomacy, because some has called it passive leadership. As we've seen, South Africa seem to take, that role in the African continent. But I want to stay on President Tinubu's speech at the African Union, where he talked about the forces that plundered Africa in the past. And he said they are still seeking to impede its progress today, and they would not find easy inroads into the continent. Is that an indication of the kind of leadership he's likely to provide and how he intends to relate with the West?
Exactly. And it is not surprising at all because even when he wasn't president, he spoke along that line. He has always, laid out the interests of Africa and, how the rest of the world should leave Africa alone. Africa is not a continent to be exploited. Even in the climate change, debate, he has taken a strong position that, yes, we know that the climate change is a problem, but Africans need to survive and all that. So that will be keyed into Africa's commitment to climate change. So the position he has maintained is very clear. That is the interest of Africa, Pan-Africanism, how Africans can come together, unite, to solve the problems of the continent, and why they should stand and let the rest of the world know that Africa will not, the time that Africa will become a theater for others to come and plunder and go away has passed. So his position on African issues and his comments to the rest of the world that, neo-colonialism will not be allowed is just in line with the position he has always maintained, even when he wasn't president. So I'm not surprised about, all of what he has done in the past couple of weeks.
But there are some who will listen and who are watching who will say, look, the whole colonial rule and the whole that hold on Africa by the West is one half of the problem, and that the other half of the problem is passive leadership and passive and disconnected leadership, quite frankly. Some would say, look, the leaders in Africa are not connected, don't know what's going on, in the grassroots. Should that not also be addressed as much as we're addressing the influence of the West in Africa?
Yes, it has to be addressed. I mean, there is hardly any issue that will have, that is monoposa. There are usually several sides to, have things unfold. The external factor, yes, is a very strong one, and it's clear for us to see their impact on Africa, and of course, plundering Africa's resources. But the other side also is what our people are doing, especially African leaders. They need to be more committed to their respective countries and to the cause of Africa itself and Africanism. Virtually everything that Africa has achieved on the global scale has been achieved when African states came together. The struggle against colonialism, the end of apartheid in South Africa, racism and all that. All of that was achieved only because African countries came together. The fact is that African countries on their own are too small and weak to be able to make an impact on the global community. So it's only when they come together, first when they are committed to their respective countries, and when they demonstrate clear vision, and then when they come together, to work as one, that is only where and how they are able to, able to achieve the vision they have for Africa. So you are quite right. Talking about the neo-colonialism being pushed away is one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is the commitment of African leaders and Africans themselves, and they are working together to tackle the continent's numerous problems.
Do you agree with those who say, look, Nigeria has been sleeping, they've been calling Nigeria the sleeping giant for a while now, and that South Africa seems to have taken the leadership role in terms of diplomacy between Africa and the West, on the continent, and that Nigeria needs to wake up, either take that role or collaborate with South Africa?
Yeah, in the past couple of years, from 1999 to 2007, when President Bazoum was in the saddle, the voice of Nigeria was loud and clear, both in West Africa, in Africa, and on the global scale. I mean, they were the ones that midwifed both the AU, Nepal, and the rest of them, working with Thabo Mbeki and others. After President Bazoum left, things began to, go down gradually. And the 8 years of, President Buhari, Nigeria was practically in somnolence. So right now that President Tinubu has come and is championing the African cause once again, is bringing vibrancy into Nigeria's place on the global scale, is defending the cause of West Africa, and not just defending, laying out clear, things that need to be done and how they should be done, and also, trying to pull the rest of Africa together. That's fine. Nigeria will need to assert itself as it's doing now for Africa to be able to, raise its voice on the global scale. And of course, there's also need to work with others, South Africa, Algeria, or the Egypt, the big powers in West Africa, of course, carrying everybody else along. That is the only way that Africa will be able to, hold its own, if you like, on the global scale.
And we will also see how this vibrancy would impact on how Nigerians are treated within Africa and overseas. Thank you so much for talking to us. Always a pleasure. Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies, David Awarawo.
Thank you for having me.